After a shaky start in the Grand Slam final, Magnus Carlsen is now starting to motor. He defeated Caruana, who's still leading the tournament after 6 rounds. But Carlsen had a fantastic chance to gain more ground today. In round 7 he was playing Vallejo, who's at the bottom of the tournament. So let's see how he got on. Carlsen, with the white pieces, played e4. Vallejo played a French defence, and it was Vinava variation, a Winoa variation. And here, of course, e5 is the main line. But true to his tactics in the opening, Carlsen didn't go for a main line. He played a side variation. He played this kind of delayed exchange variation and now played bishop d3. Strangely enough, I actually recommended this system in one of my Power Play DVDs, in fact the latest one, and I think this system is really quite underestimated. It's basically an exchange variation where white already has his bishop on this excellent diagonal and black's bishop on b4 is somewhat misplaced. So white has already gained something in his development. Well, let's see how things panned out. Okay, knight f6, sensible development. Knight e2. Okay, the point is that if the knight had gone to f3, then this pin can be a little bit irritating. So that's why the knight goes to e2. Vallejo played this move anyway, but of course this pin can be broken very easily with f3. This is the game continuation. Now, if black manages to get to g6 and exchange off these bishops, I don't think white has any advantage whatsoever. So, therefore, knight f4 is played. Okay, black manages to exchange off this, well, so-called bad bishop, but at least white has the bishop pair now. This can be a significant advantage in the position. Okay, at the moment it's a very theoretical advantage. These bishops don't have fantastic diagonals. Even so, I'm sure Carlsen was already very happy with the outcome of the opening. Now, Ivanchuk actually had this exact position in the game against this Philippine player So, and he played bishop g5. It's interesting to see that some of the top players are kind of beginning to realise this system is perhaps worth an outing. Well, it was a very complicated game that Ivanchuk had, and he eventually lost, but still, he got a very interesting position. Instead of bishop g5, Carlsen first played knight e2. Now, I think this is a good move. The knight has no prospects on the other side of the board, so swings over to the king side, and it kind of leaves this bishop hanging in the air as well. Okay, rook e8. Now I'm going to zip through these next moves. Good development from Carlsen. I think this, well, the way that the game is going shows how easy it is in these positions for white to build up a strong attack very simply. This bishop's still an excellent piece, and if white can get in f5, then this will open the f-file. It opens this diagonal for the bishop. The knight can come to f5. I mean, this is just a superb position. So already black has to take great care here. Knight h7 from Vallejo. Now queen f3. Now I think possibly Vallejo should just exchange off and allow white to take on d5, but I think in this way he can at least exchange pieces, and perhaps white is slightly better here. But instead he played c6, and now after h4, I think already, well, this is a difficult position for black. He's probably not worse with best play, but it's tough. You know, if you try and win this bishop, then black's kingside just gets ripped to shreds here. I mean, this is absolutely dreadful, and so on. I mean, it's an appalling position. So okay, knight f8. I think that's a prudent move. So I mean, you can see already. I mean, this must have been very intimidating indeed for Vallejo. White's position is just so active. White's pieces are so active. And again, f6 just will get ripped to shreds after h5. For example, well, pawn takes bishop, you take on g6, and okay, if the knight comes out, you take on g5, and this is absolutely terrible. Okay, so queen c7 played. Now Carlsen took and played rook e5. I mean, you could possibly lunge forward with h5 here, but okay, Carlsen selected rook e5. Now here, I think Vallejo made a bad strategic error, f6, because this really helps the bishop, and it takes away this important square from the knight as well. I think he should have played rook e8. Now, maybe this is difficult to see, and then just kind of stay solid with rook e6. Now, you know, moves like h5 look very tempting for white, but I think black is hanging on there. But okay, h6 played. As I said, I think now white is doing extremely well after h5, and frankly I was amazed that Vallejo managed to hang on for so many moves, but there's a lot more to see in this game. If black tries to close things with g5, then h6 is a great move, and if g6, f5, you can see this knight is terrible, whereas white's pieces are just flooding into the position. So takes, queen takes, queen f7. Okay, I'm going to go through these next moves rather quickly and reach the critical position. Basically, white has a very, very nice attack here, and Carlsen was starting to play these moves. He was playing so quickly, and Vallejo was running short of time. This is a very nice strategy. Of course, if queen e3 check, well, king g3 is an only move, but the king is very safe. Okay, let me zip through. And rook h1. Things still going very well indeed for white, although, okay, Vallejo at least has managed to exchange off those minor pieces. Okay, now let's look at this position in more detail. Still very nice pressure from Carlsen. This knight is a poor piece, and white would really like to play g4 here to get this bishop going. And it was here that actually Carlsen started to use up a bit more time, and things was kind of evening out in terms of time. I think white has a tremendous position here, but it's not simple any longer. I think g4 is actually a very strong move, but I can understand when you're running short of time, perhaps this is not the easiest move to play. If black takes, then queen h4, a very simple move indeed. The threat is queen f6 check, followed by taking on g6, and that will win. So rook f7, and now again a very simple move, queen g5, just protecting this pawn and threatening to take on g6. And if rook g7, rook h6, and we take on g6, and well, I think white should win this with these connected passed pawns. But okay, this is tricky to calculate when you're short of time. That's not the only move that black has. Of course, there's c4 to consider as well, and then this involves a piece sacrifice. And you know, this is not simple at all. I think when you're running short of time, I think white is probably winning here. But when you're short of time, I think you look for simpler solutions, and Carlsen chose b3. I mean, I was slightly surprised about this. I think b3 is okay. I thought simply c3, maintaining the bishop on this, well, yeah, perhaps we can't maintain it on this diagonal, but just kind of holding black's pawns. And if c4, well, actually, I think the bishop can come back. And here, just if the queen swings over, you know, this endgame is very, very strong for white, because this pawn here is just falling. Actually, this is the problem now that you can see with c5 from black. It actually weakens this pawn here. And if black were to take on b2, then queen takes a7, and the queen is broken through. And this is tremendous for white. So I thought c3 was probably a safer choice here. But Carlsen chose b3, and after c4, well, again, I was really surprised particularly when he was short of time, that he played pawn takes pawn, because this opens up these diagonals towards the king, and this caused him a few problems. I thought he should have just dropped the bishop back straight away, and at least this keeps this diagonal closed, and I think this keeps white in control here actually. Okay, but instead he took, and after bishop e2 we can see the king is opening up. I should be still good for white. I think Carlsen overlooked this tremendous counter g5, and Carlsen actually started to use up much of his remaining time here, and so both players were down to something like 2 or 3 minutes for their remaining moves to get to move 40, and this is such a tricky position. You know, of course we would like to take this pawn, but then queen e5 threatens the bishop, threatens all kinds of nasty checks here, and too much. So after some thought, Carlsen went for g3 just to maintain this pawn, obviously maintain the f4 pawn which holds e5. But this is now tricky, because suddenly after this check we can't move the queen over to e3, and after king g2, queen e3. Now I think Carlsen was incredibly brave to actually allow this, but he'd calculated that he was still alright here. Now there's an alternative, queen c6 check, and now at first I thought bishop f3, but during I was commentating on this game live, I'd completely overlooked queen takes bishop, and black survives. Well, I think this endgame should probably be a draw actually, even though black is a piece up, but yeah, after queen c6, king f1 is still okay for white here. But okay, queen e3 was played, also looks incredibly scary, but king f1, and white is okay here. For example, check, king up, queen takes, and actually this is probably winning quite easily for white. The rook still can't take here because of the knight, and white should be winning. And if pawn takes pawn, queen takes f5 breaks through, there's queen f8 mate threatened, and well, that's the end of the game. Very tricky position indeed. What should Vallejo play here? It's tough. Queen e4 maybe? But after this, well, I mean, this is a difficult move to meet. It keeps an eye on the rook, but probably white is winning this position. It's not simple. And now a great move, rook h4, that covers a lot of squares. Maybe it threatens to come in here, or d4. White should be winning, but very tricky. But rook f7 was certainly a blunder from Vallejo. Now came queen h5, and actually it's all over. If the rook moves, then you simply, well, there are a couple of winning moves here, but you can simply take on g5, and this is going home, and the queen defends here. Vallejo, in time pressure, took on g3, but there was no perpetual check here. It's quite fairly simple to calculate, because in each position there's actually only one check for black, and in this position the king is safe. There's only one more check, and here actually f4 was played, but black resigned. The king simply goes to g4, and the sensible checks have run out, and remember, white is still a rook up, and queen f8 mate is the terrible threat. Fantastic win from Carlsen. I thought his play at the end was very brave, because he kept the pressure on Vallejo, and even when I'm pretty sure that he, well, perhaps overlooked g5, or certainly underestimated the move, but even then he kept his nerve and found a way to play on in this position. Superb stuff. So we have 3 rounds to go, and 2 players sharing the lead, Caruana and Carlsen, with Aronian just behind. So all to play for. All to play for. I'm commentating live on playchess.com tomorrow for round 8. Do join me. The round starts at 1700 hours 1700 hours Central European time, I'll be starting my commentary an hour after that. Do join me. Thanks very much.